Welcome back. We are joined by Professor Richard Sakwa, the top Russia academic we have in Europe, to discuss his new book, yet another one. You keep pumping them out quite consistently with the title, The Russo-Ukrainian War, Follies of Empire. So thank you for coming back on.
It's my pleasure.
So I was wondering, in your book, what are the main findings and arguments? And can you also explain the use of the term empire to link to the conflict?
Yeah. Do you know, that's an ideal question because it sets the framework. I've been thinking a lot about how to frame this discussion we're going to have today, and indeed the bigger picture around this war. And building on what I write in the book, may I just the big, you know, if you want to put it this way, my main value added, if one can put it like that, is an attempt to provide some sort of conceptual framework for this conflict, and indeed for international affairs today, which clearly are in a state of extreme turbulence. And the way I'd like to conceptualize it, to formulate this, is in the following way. I've been arguing for some time that there's a distinction needs to be made in thinking about international affairs today between, on the one side, the international system, and this builds on English school thinking, and the international system, of course, is the United Nations-based charter system established in 1945. And of course, that itself is under unprecedented challenge. The United Nations is largely marginalized and has been for a few years paralyzed in its ability to negotiate and manage crises. But within this international system, which has lasted lasted 80 years and is under unprecedented challenge today, we have a number of contesting models of world order. And so, everybody's saying, oh, the international order is collapsing. What do people mean by this? It's the language in which so much discussion takes place today, in my view, is confused and is mixing up many things. So we have on the one side this system, that is the body, not just the United Nations, but the body of international law, norms, etc., which frame what is legitimate and what is not legitimate in international politics. Then we have, at the level of international politics, models of world order. We used to have the Soviet system as a model of socialist internationalism, and etc., on which has collapsed, of course. But on the other side, we had what established after 1945, the US-led transatlantic alliance system, later called the rules-based order. I call it the political West. And the enormity of what happened after 1945 in the establishment of this alliance system, with which, a core about a dozen states, all the European ones, Canada, Australasia, of course, and indeed Japan is part of this political West, but the core is the North Atlantic Alliance. And what this has done is transformed the quality of our very stated. There's a lot of discussion about how membership of the European Union changes the quality of the member state, Christopher Bickerton, Phil Cunliffe, and others. But I'm arguing a bit more wider than that membership of this Atlantic alliance system, of course, has done a lot for the inability of Western European states to develop their separate security and defense policy. It's all been within NATO, at the core of this political West, the dominance relationship with Washington for all these years, and so on. This political West has two faces. One of them is the Commonwealth face. This is delivering public goods, allegedly, appeal to democracy, freedom, and all these good things, free trade. But the other side is the imperial facet. This is where that empire comes in. So this political West has two features, this model of world order. And of course, after 1989, instead of being considering itself, it's done its job done, we can now go quietly into the night, instead of which it radicalized, and we've talked about this before. in a number of ways, and expanded, of course, NATO expansion, EU expansion, and ideological expansion to cover the whole world as the universal. So this rules-based order, this US-led political West, began to challenge the universality of the United Nations system. So you have the substitution for a suborder, the political West, the Atlantic West, call it what you like, and the genuine universality of the United Nations system and as a system, the Charter system. That's the first model of world order. The second one today is the anti-hegemonic alignment of Russia, China, and a number of other states. Now, again, it's not quite clear. They're not counter-hegemonic because that's simply being the opposite of the US-led West. It actually sets up in defense of the Charter universalism, yet at the same time, it also has its own, if you like, expansive ambitions. Let's call it empire, but of course, a different way entirely. Just for the sake of completeness, there's the third model of world order which competes today is the global south. There's non-aligned movement, the spirit of Bandung, and the global south, which says, look, not just a plague on both your houses, but we want nothing to do with your houses. They're more than swing states. These are countries focusing on development alignment, also committed to the Charter. And the fourth model is the one that is emerging today. This is the Trumpian disruption, which is also undermining everything. It's undermining the Charter system. So it's actually escaping, it's the 66 international organizations that Trump has left in the last few months, including about half of the ones in the United Nations. But Trump is defecting from the political West itself. And of course, riding roughshod over the rights of the global South. We see this in Venezuela, Iran, elsewhere. And so this fourth model of world order, it's a power-based model. Everybody talks the return of great power politics. Well, that never disappeared. But what's unique now is that it's power-based. Simply, I'm bigger than you, I can do what I like, and even it has contempt for its own allies, let alone enemies. So that's the larger context in which we can then drill down and put the Russo-Ukrainian war in that context.
But as you say this, you present these concepts, the hegemonic bloc versus the counter-hegemonic bloc. I'm wondering if did these concepts themselves, I was thinking why it might be difficult to often discuss it, because you and I have spoken about that in the past as well, the difficult climate for discourse, because